Greetings everyone, I am RSV. We know nothing about the Meteorn. Let's start with what we do know about the Meteorn from NGS itself. First off, we do know that the Meteorn comes from the floating citadel in the sky, and we also know that the dolls also originate from there too, at least in Alio. The other thing is we know that we came in what appears to be an escape pod or cryopod or just an ejection pod of some kind. There isn't much else that we know for sure on this, however. The next thing we do know though is that our character has lost memory. To what degree I'll go into a bit later in the video, but it is established that there are other Meteorns who have also lost their memory, although Manon can remember bits and pieces. However, we do not remember anything from what we can see currently. We don't even really know who the Halfinians are, and we still defend them. We are similar to them. We might even be the same. However, we do not know on that front. All we really know is that the Meteorns, when available, have been fighting the dolls, despite the fact that dolls and Meteorns come from the same location, and it does appear that dolls are hostile to Meteorn in general, regardless of whether or not they are aiding the Halfins or not. However, we do not have a situation yet where a Meteorn is aiding the dolls. So it is possible that dolls are purely the enemies of the Meteorn. However, we do not know for sure yet. And going into the Meteorn that exist in world, we have Manon, and we do know that there are other Meteorn in the Ark's defenders. We do know, however, that all these Meteorns are different to us in several ways. One of those things is it appears that our existence started things moving. We do know that on the day that we arrived on Halfa, that the Darkfalls attacked Alio Town. It isn't certain if this is coincidence or not, but it is possible that we are the equivalent of a Darkfalls to a doll, and that is why a Darkfalls appeared. But we'll have to wait and see on that note. But why would a Darkfalls suddenly appear when we're around? We do not have any information on this yet, and this is only speculation at that. But there are several other things about Manon in particular that is different to us, but I've already mentioned one of them. From what we also know though is that we are the latest Meteorn that has landed. We do not have confirmation that another Meteorn has landed unless there is something in the Pso2 comics that I have missed. But of course, RS, there is also a huge base game for lore, and it is kind of hard to ignore it. And well, to some degree it shouldn't be. There are some cases that I will argue that it is prudent to ignore base game first, but in this case, I think it's fair to actually look at base game and look at what similarities the Meteorn has with the Guardian. Firstly, the Meteorn can use all affinities. This means that it can use all classes in the game. This, in base game, is stressed to be a unique thing, and is the only connection between the Guardian and Meteorn that we actually canonically have at the moment, if that is true. There are several other possible canonical connections, however, it is unsure and it's fully reliant on the lore of base game without enough information. However, we do know for certain that our character can use all affinities, and we can actually infer the type of amnesia that our character is inflicted with, at least right now. Assuming Luster is not canonically in the game mode yet, and this is very key and very important, because just because a class isn't in the game right now for us doesn't mean that it doesn't canonically exist in the game world right now. It could be that Luster was intended to be in the world from launch, but for limitation reasons we didn't get it. Can we determine if this was the case or not? Yes and no. There is a Gunblade enemy, but this doesn't really support the idea that the player should be able to use a Gunblade. But I'll go with the theory that Luster does not exist at the moment because this seems more prudent. But why is this so important? Because it means that the Guardian has forgotten how to be a Luster. If the theory that the character that we have on Halfa is the Guardian from the previous game, then the Meteorn has forgotten how to be a Luster. This is significant because forgetting how to do your skills is actually a different type of amnesia compared to other. Retrograde amnesia is usually associated with forgetting past events rather than skills. When you have amnesia, you don't typically forget your skills, things like how to breathe and how to talk, but you may struggle to, say, do more developed skills like talk. And this actually lines up with what we have in game, where we can't just be a god like we were in base game. However, if Luster was not canonically in the game, it means we have completely forgotten a skill that we spent our entire lives honing. And completely forgetting this skill is very, very complex of an issue to discuss when we talk about amnesia. and just forgetting what happened in the first place. And the final thing that I could really infer from base game is that we can defeat the Dark Falls. If I recall correctly, Dark Falls are made of anti-photon, and what happens when Ark's defenders attack Dark Falls or Full Spawn, they collect these anti-photons, and this is the process of Dark Falls being defeated. Their anti-photons are collected. But on several occasions in base game, it kind of appears that when these entities are hit by a laser beam or by something that can't absorb the anti-photons from Dark Falls when it hits them, the Dark Falls appear to get stronger from it rather than weaker. And this is very important, because what happens in NGS during that fight scene, we injure the Dark Fall, and then Crawford's cannon, us expecting it finish the Dark Falls off, appears to instead do next to nothing. Crawford is incredibly frustrated by this, but here's the odd thing, we clearly injured the Dark Falls, and the cannon did nothing. So, while this is more probably a point to the Dark Falls actually being a Dark Falls, rather than something about Meteorn, it is interesting to think about that the Dark Falls may have not been a Dark Falls should that laser have destroyed it. But I will reiterate what I said at the start of the video. We do not know much about the Meteorn, and even the Dark Falls theme song, probably one of the best soundtracks in NGS currently, even sings about this. While it's meant to be a hype song for the Meteorn, it sings about us not knowing anything. There's even a line in the song, "I fulfill a plan unknown." Of course, I don't expect them to give us all the answers straight away. However, some more grounding in the world of Halfa I think is really needed in Pso2 currently. I don't know if I'm the only one who felt this, but when I listened to the Meteorn song for the first time, I just thought the song was good. I didn't resonate with it at all. I didn't relate to the Meteorn's plight, and I didn't relate to the state of the character in the game. In fact, very much so, I was still under the impression that I was the Guardian. I still feel like a Guardian. And what NGS has been doing to some degree has been making a mockery of said Guardian, making this once really strong character feel really weak and, at worst, an innocent bystander. While this dissonance is the effect of mystery, and mystery around the Halfinians and the dolls, it is coming at the expense of the Meteorn to a huge degree. If the players knew more specifically about their character, maybe not about Meteorns in general, it would be better for the health of the game for anyone invested in the story. Of course, anyone who isn't invested in the story probably doesn't care. However, for those of us who are invested in the story, it would be great to learn more about the character, and we probably will in the future. However, it makes the Meteorn song a song about how we do not connect to our character, rather than a song about the Meteorn. Because the song, as I said, stresses that we don't know anything that's going on at the moment. Like, hell, the Dark Falls could be a fused Stratos, Lucot, and Hokuya from base game, for all I know, or we know. And I've been RSV. I hope you enjoyed my lore video, and I will see you next time.